distinction.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. Good morning. You are watching Fox and Friends First on this Thursday morning. I'm Carly Shimkus.
And I'm Todd Pyra, both of us in for Heather Childers. Thank you for starting your day with us.
And we begin with a Fox News alert. Right now, 1,700 migrants are pushing through Guatemala, inching towards the U.S. border.
Griff Jenkins, traveling with the caravan, joins us live from Guatemala City as we learn a brand new group is now on the move. Griff, good morning.
Yeah, that's right. Good morning, Todd and Carly. There are more groups on the way. On the 20th, there's another group just like this leaving San Pedro Sula, Honduras, and we're hearing of one in El Salvador. I'll touch on that in just a second. But I want to show you, we're outside a migrant shelter. It's called the Casa del Migrante in Guatemala City. It is the destination where that original caravan is trying to get to. The director tells us that the capacity inside is 300. You can see now already dozens sleeping on the street. She said she expects as many as 2,500, in her words, to be coming this way. We're talking to a few of these migrants who are actually awake, and they're telling us that they're waiting here for more to join right now. Let me just tell you that one of the migrants we talked to, Marcio Caballero, was inside. He speaks a little bit of English. We talked to him about his journey and his past. Listen.
I spent there for 10 years.
What happened?
I got deported 2 years ago. Because I get there, I was living there illegally, and they found out that I was trying to stay there, but the judge did not believe my story.
So we know that somewhere north of 1,500 to 2,000 migrants are crossing that Honduran border, already have done so. Now with this new one coming from El Salvador, which are reports from Reuters were that it was 150, but expected to grow along the way, and gaining some of the Guatemalan citizens who will join this caravan, what you're going to see is a swelling of sorts of the migrants, because it is Mexico where they most fear both the criminal organizations that will prey on them, along with Mexican immigration police that will quickly deport them if they're a small group. So they're gathering here, and they're marching towards 157 miles exactly from where I stand to the Tapachula, Mexico border. They'll begin that later today or on Friday, guys.
Griff, that gentleman you spoke with said he was deported 2 years ago. If I'm not mistaken, that would be under the Obama administration, correct?
That's correct. Said he lived in Pennsylvania for 14 years. He was picked up for soliciting prostitution, and a judge deported him. Now he says that he's not sure exactly how he's going to get back, but he does know it's going to have to be illegally because he has a very weak case, obviously, for asylum. Todd?
And Griff, really quickly, have you spoken to anybody in the migrant caravan that is aware of what's going on in the United States, meaning President Trump has spoken out against this group of people coming to the United States, and that our government is partially shut down as a result of border security?
That's a great question, Carly. And yes, they're all aware of the stance that the administration has taken against them, but they're also aware that many in the original caravan have gotten across, albeit many of them illegally. They have made it into the United States, and that is why they are continuing to be determined to try.
Griff Jenkins live for us. Guatemala City. Griff, thank you, as always.
Thanks, Griff.
Meantime, the House passing a disaster relief bill that would fund the government through early February. It would help areas affected by hurricanes and wildfires and reopen the government temporarily. But the Republican-controlled Senate is not likely to consider this bill because there's no money for President Trump's border wall. Democrats have expressed concern that the president would use disaster funds for the wall. Key Republicans say they're confident that won't happen.
And meanwhile, a key Democrat is breaking with the ranks, saying walls do work. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer rejecting Speaker Pelosi's claim that a border wall is immoral when pressed by Fox News' Bret Baier. Watch.
I don't think this is an issue of morality. A wall is immoral if it tries to imprison people who shouldn't be in prison.
Okay.
A wall that protects people is not immoral. I think the issue is whether it works.
They work some places.
Obviously, they work some places.
Okay. Well, Hoyer also indicated Democrats are willing to compromise to end the government shutdown.
Another key argument Democrats are making against building the wall is that it is racist or offensive.
Yeah, but South Carolina Senator Tim Scott is turning the tables on the left, saying they're the ones using identity politics to influence the American people.
Here we are sitting in the midst of a shutdown, and one of the tactics of the left is to make the wall immoral or talk about racism that's somehow conflated with protecting our country. Common sense suggests that if you have 1,950 miles of border and you have about 700 miles that don't need a fence because you have natural border there, to be a nation, we have to have strong security at our borders.
Today is the 27th day of the partial shutdown in Washington, also the longest shutdown in history.
Republicans firing back against House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's request to postpone the president's State of the Union address. The Democrats citing security concerns during the shutdown.
Anita Vogel joins us live from Los Angeles with how the Trump administration is responding. Good morning, Anita.
Well, good morning, Todd and Carly. You know, less than 2 weeks after inviting President Trump to deliver the State of the Union address, Nancy Pelosi is now walking that back. The Speaker of the House sending a letter to the president writing, quote, "Sadly, given the security concerns and unless government reopens this week, I suggest that we work together to determine another suitable date after government has reopened." Pelosi attempting to justify her actions.
It's a security decision which is completely out of my hands. This is a housekeeping matter in the Congress of the United States so that we can honor the responsibility of the invitation we extended to the president. You can make it from the Oval Office if you want.
Senator Lindsey Graham expressing his outrage over her request to postpone it.
Nancy Pelosi wants to cancel the State of the Union and wants to give the president $1 for the wall. Not very good ideas. Something's got to give.
House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy telling Fox News, quote, "It's unbecoming of a speaker to do this." Democrats sounding off on the letter and the fate of the address.
No, I don't think it's officially off. I had not seen the Speaker's letter. We haven't gotten a reply from the President and his thoughts, so it's not officially off now.
The Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristen Nielsen, ensuring security will be prepared, tweeting, quote, "The Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Secret Service are fully prepared to support and secure the State of the Union. We thank the service for their mission focus and dedication and for all they do each day to secure our homeland." Meanwhile, at the White House, President Trump signs a bill giving federal workers back pay as the shutdown enters day 27. He also sat down with the Problem Solvers Caucus yesterday, but no solutions came out of that meeting. Todd and Carly, back to you.
Politics per usual. Anita, thank you so much.
A Fox News alert now. President Trump heading to the Pentagon today after meeting with senators on U.S. involvement.
Bringing snow, wind, and heavy rain.
Getting it, I think.
Right.
After 2 days of confirmation hearings, Democrats still aren't satisfied with Attorney General nominee William Barr. 9 witnesses testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee before the hearings wrapped up. Democrats want more assurances that Barr will be transparent with Robert Mueller's Russia probe.
This is a big report, and the public needs to see it. I am hopeful that that report will be made public, and my vote depends on that.
You know, in case William Barr didn't realize it was a big report, it's good that he got that confirmation. The committee has until Tuesday to submit more questions before deciding if the entire Senate will vote on his nomination.
The mayor of Los Angeles will mediate talks today as 30,000 teachers strike for a 4th straight day.
We're told our education will not be sold.
Teachers in the nation's second largest school district demanding things like higher pay and smaller class sizes. The union president expects talks to continue through the weekend.
Time now, 12 minutes after the hour. President Trump has threatened to cut off aid to countries that do not do their part in stopping the flow of illegal immigration. So with 2 new caravans on the way, our next guest explains why that should be the president's next step.
And don't like your name at school? No problem. The university changing its ID cards to be more gender inclusive.
After the hour now, and a Fox News alert right now, another migrant caravan marching toward our southern border, this one from El Salvador.
And just last month, the State Department pledged billions to prevent new caravans from forming. With 2 more on the way, should the president take that money back?
Here now to weigh in is former political director for the Republican Party of Texas, Ash Wright. Ash, thanks so much for being here. You say the president should immediately cut funding to El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras.
Yeah,
Why?
absolutely. So we did the billions of dollars that they gave last week. We also give over $150 million annually in aid to those countries. Obviously, they're not using that aid for what the purpose of the money. It's not working. It's better off in our hands. We're actually, once they get to our border and they're south of us, we're the ones that are providing the aid and the tents and the housing for them and for children and the food. And so that money is better off in our hands when they actually get to our border. And so there's no reason for us to continue to give that aid to those countries.
We give these countries money to make them more livable places. So if we cut funding, won't more people want to leave the country and come into the United States?
Well, I mean, I agree with that, yes, except for the fact that they're still wanting to come here anyways. And so as we give away billions of dollars, the idea would be that we're propping up governments that are socialist and that have no economic or capitalism system for their citizens. The problem is it's not working. And so if it's not working, we need the money back because we're essentially double paying for each of these citizens in aid.
Do you think that they actually see the money, or does the government control it and it never gets down to
That's exactly what it is. The government is taking the money. They're using it for expenditures that are government related. They're not passing it down to the citizens that are actually in need, that actually need food, clothing, health care, et cetera, which is why they're forced to march in caravans up to the United States to try and get our aid that we provide for our citizens.
And especially in third world countries, you mentioned the government. There's an implication there that there's a lot of corruption going on with this money just being funneled into the hands of the elite of these third world countries.
Absolutely.
And never seeing the
Absolutely.
light of day. Want to get your opinion on this. A federal judge in New York barring the Trump administration from adding a question about citizenship to the 2020 census. To hear the judge and to hear Democrats talk about this, it was a procedural decision. But playing lawyer here for a moment, I don't know of a lot of procedural decisions that are longer than a paragraph. This decision was almost 300 pages.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
So 277 pages. It was, frankly, I think it's outrageous. So there's always been 2 census forms, a long form for citizens that are new and a short form for citizens that they already have. The long form has had the citizenship question on it in the past. The short form is the form that doesn't. The problem with not asking it and why the State Department needs to ask it is because our congressional districts are 435 total, but they're based on population. And so if you take a large number of illegal immigrants that are completing a form where they're not forced to say whether they're an actual citizen or not, it will overweight congressional populations and congressional representation into states. Like I was researching it last night, it'll be 3 in California, roughly 3 or 4 in Texas, at least 2 in Florida. And so those states will get more congressional seats and it'll end up being Minnesota, Michigan, Ohio that could possibly lose them because they have less immigrants or less illegal immigrants that are not completing the forms. And so that's really the problem, is it's an infringement upon American citizens when it comes to their representation in Congress.
Everything that we're seeing in D.C. right now comes down to future votes, and anybody who says otherwise is fooling themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's all just Republican versus Democrat, and the Democrats are trying to do everything they can to secure more votes in Congress.
We shall see if this one makes it to the Supreme Court. Ash Carter, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, the time now is 19 minutes after the hour. A Fox News alert: police raiding the home of a 21-year-old Georgia man, uncovering a plan to attack the White House. And that wasn't his only target. More of the chilling details coming up.
And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, we never mention her on the news, slamming President Trump in her first speech on the House floor.
It is certainly not normal to starve the people we serve for a proposal that is wildly unpopular among the American people.
But, as you might imagine, she did not stop there. The other top Republican being chased around Capitol Hill.
Sounds exciting. Good morning. morning. Welcome back. Rudy Giuliani firing back at CNN over claims he said the Trump campaign never colluded with Russians.
Well, you just misstated my position. I never said there was no collusion between the campaign or between people in the campaign.
Yes,
I have no idea if I have not. I said the President of the United States.
Giuliani, the president's personal lawyer, says he doesn't know what other members of the Trump campaign may have done. Last week, prosecutors said former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort lied to them about sharing poll data with a Russian-Ukrainian businessman. Not good.
Congressman Steve King appears to be confident that he will not be censured.
No, that's just not going to happen.
It's not going to happen?
Oh, no.
Okay. I think it's unfair for them to punish you 2 times over the remarks you made.
That's not going to happen either.
This week, the House overwhelmingly voting to formally disapprove of white nationalism and white supremacy. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle joining together to strongly condemn comments that King made to the New York Times. Republican lawmakers, including Senators Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham, among the most outspoken. King has also been removed from all committee assignments. The Iowa Republican claims that his comments were taken out of context.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez using her first floor speech to go after the president.
It is not normal to shut down the government when we don't get what we want. And it is certainly not normal to starve the people we serve for a proposal that is wildly unpopular among the American people.
The Democratic Socialist also led a group of freshman congresswomen on a march to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's office. They hope to express frustration with the Senate not considering House bills to end the shutdown.
Despite her critics, AOC as they call her, as the kids are calling her, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has influenced younger generations.
Chairman of the American Conservative Union, Matt Schlapp, says that should be a major concern for conservatives.
We have CPAC coming up here in less than 50 days, and what's happening on college campuses, but also high school campuses and younger, is this radicalization of the education establishment. And look at the results. Look what's coming out of it. She has advanced, expensive degrees, and she doesn't seem to know basic fundamentals about constitutional government, American law, and economics. I'm not mocking her. I actually fear, because it's working. People are listening to this. They're listening to the siren song. We need to wake up, and we need to educate our kids to push back on this radicalism, because America won't be the same if we don't win these battles.
Ocasio-Cortez, a Democratic socialist, seemingly came out of nowhere back in June. Remember that? Beating a top House Democrat, Joe Crowley, in the New York primary. Now, this is real fake news. Left-wing pranksters handing out fake editions of the Washington Post to people in D.C. The headline on the bogus papers dated May 1st, 2019 says President Trump resigned. The fake copies.
I was going to say, gosh, that looks real, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Those fake
Scotty,
copies
take it away.
also claim the resignation sparked celebrations around the world, as you see right there, and that Vice President Mike Pence was sworn in as president. The actual Washington Post says they will not tolerate stunts like this. But wow, I mean,
there's fake news on the internet, and there's fake news hard copy as well.
You didn't tell me this.
Yes, you can't believe everything you see online.
Time now, 27 minutes after the hour. Senator Lindsey Graham voicing his concerns about Syria after 4 Americans are killed in an ISIS blast.
My concern by the statements made by President Trump is that you'd set in motion enthusiasm by the enemy we're fighting.
Fox News alert. A man is behind bars accused of plotting a terror attack on the White House. Hashur Jalal Tlaib told an undercover agent he wanted to blow a hole in the White House, then attack people with guns and grenades. He was arrested in a sting operation where he traded his car for rifles and explosives, killing 21 people. His parents say the Texas native dedicated his life to helping others.
All over the world for people that I met him even once, and he had touched them to such an extent that helped change their lives.
Well, Spindler was late to work the morning the planes hit the World Trade Center in 2000. To Washington for a new round of trade talks. The meeting, scheduled for January 30th and 31st, will focus on ending the rising tariffs between the U.S. and China. Last month, President Trump and President Xi Jinping agreed to suspend hikes for 90 days as the countries work towards a more permanent solution. And new chairwoman of the House Financial Services Committee has a fresh warning for Wall Street.
The crisis was a result of Wall Street running amok. The committee will be paying close attention to whether financial regulators try to weaken these important reforms, and we will be keeping an eye on the big banks and their activities.
Representative Maxine Waters outlining her agenda during a speaking event in Washington. The Democrat says she will keep a particularly close watch on the growth of financial technology as Americans continue banking in new ways. Toddy.
Carly, thank you. Fox News alert President Trump heading to the Pentagon today after meeting with senators to discuss his plan to pull troops out of Syria. This after ISIS claims responsibility for a suicide bombing that killed 4 Americans. Here to discuss is former intel officer and Iraq War veteran Don Bramer. Don, thanks so much for being here. Before we start grilling you with questions here, I want you to hear what Lindsey Graham said yesterday right in the middle of the Barr hearings on this very topic. Take a listen.
My concern by the statements made by President Trump is that you had set in motion enthusiasm by the enemy we're fighting.
You agree. You say the fact that these statements are coming out is part and parcel of the reason why this attack happened. Why do you say that?
Well, Todd, good morning. You know, the first thing I'd like to say is my condolences to the families of these Americans. But any time that you politicize or publicize troop movement,
appease those folks, but stay in to continue our commitment there and to protect the homeland as well as the troops' lives themselves.
Well, one of the things our troops have to remain is when we start promoting that we've had a victory and that we've won here and that we're going home, you know, it's natural for people to lower their guard. We need to stay vigilant. This is still an enemy that is
assuring the world that this commitment is very strong after the president allegedly in a New York Times report said, you know, we want to get out of NATO. Is it misconstruing criticism of the organization, of NATO, as a threat to withdraw?
Well, what I think here is, Todd, you know, it's been no mystery that the president has had some stark criticism of NATO. You know, when you have 29 member countries with only 2 to 3 that pay their fair share of 2% or beyond, with more than half paying 1% or below, and then the United States having a 4.81% percentage of this, you know, it's unfair to us. And a lot of countries who have said they're going to step up their percentage still continue to take advantage of us. The alliance is more important than ever, especially if you look at what's going on in Syria, you look at what's going on across the globe in China, North Korea, and Russia. We need this alliance. We have to stay fast, but the rest of the world has to step up and pay its fair share.
So in your estimation, despite this back and forth that seems to be going on in the media, we're in NATO for the long haul?
I would certainly believe so, and I think, you know, Congress came forward and they stood first on their support of funding and standing along NATO. I think the rest of the world needs to step up to the plate and make sure that they're there to do their share as well.
Don Bramer, it's insight we need in this world right now. We appreciate you getting up and sharing it with us. Thanks so much, sir.
Thank you, Todd.
All right, the time now is 37 minutes after the hour. A Fox Business alert, a massive recall impacting nearly 200,000 cars over concerns they can catch fire. What you need to know if you have one in your garage right now.
Yeah,
wow.
I'm told cars are not supposed to catch fire.
That's not supposed to happen.
Right. Plus, if you haven't seen this video yet, turn your attention to the TV. Holy shit.
Not
Glad
a good
we
idea.
beat that.
Yeah.
A man jumps off the side of a young man. Now he's in some pretty.
We must all work constructively together to set out what Parliament does want. That's why I'm inviting MPs from all parties to come together to find a way forward.
May calling out the leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, for not participating in talks. May has to present a new plan to Parliament on Monday.
I do find it kind of comforting that there are other major nations that have
Misery
such
loves company, right?
problems.
Oh, my
That's
goodness.
probably a bad thing. All right, turning now to a Fox Business alert. Hyundai and Kia recalling hundreds of thousands of vehicles over fire risks.
This is not good. Tracy Carrasco from our sister network, Fox Business, with what you need to know. Hey, Tracy.
Yes, good morning. Hyundai and Kia recalling 168,000 vehicles over a fuel pipe problem that can cause engine fires. Now, the problem stems stems from improper repairs during previous recalls for engine failures. Now, both automakers right now under investigation by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration to see if enough vehicles were covered under that previous recall. But as you know, that agency impacted by the government shutdown. So that's why Kia and Hyundai have moved forward with this other recall. So we are seeing all of those vehicles recalled. You should be getting a notice if your vehicle is involved in this. But there's also a product improvement campaign that both companies are rolling out that will impact about 3.7 million vehicles just to make sure your vehicle is safe.
You got to have safety. It's so important. Housing a problem across the nation, affordable housing that is. In Seattle, Microsoft is going to be doing something about it.
Yes, Microsoft is making its largest pledge in the company history, pledging $500 million to help address homelessness, help build affordable housing in the Seattle area, which that area has seen real estate prices skyrocketing as more and more tech companies have moved in. So Microsoft says that it would open up housing options for low and middle income workers almost immediately. That is the first step that they're taking. So good to see that they are doing something about this problem.
$500 million. That is
a lot
no
of
small
money.
paycheck.
Yep.
Tracy, thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Time now, 44 minutes after the hour. Nancy Pelosi wants the president to postpone a State of the Union address over safety concerns in the shutdown. Our next guest says the left's real concern is stopping the president from doing what he does best, that is, talking to the American people.
And this driver turns a parking lot into a demolition derby. The unreal video is coming up.
Beautiful live look there, 6th Avenue here in the Big Apple, and a really big day here on Fox and Friends. We're going to have a live studio audience for the big show coming up at 6 a.m. Don't miss it. It's going to be awesome. All right, Washington State University letting students and staff change their names on school IDs. It's all part of the university's Gender Inclusion Initiative. Students and faculty can now change their first and middle names. School leaders saying some people were being alienated, especially those in the transgender community, by being forced to use their legal name. In Connecticut, lawmakers looking to add climate change to the curriculum. A state leader proposed a bill to start teaching the issues starting in elementary school. Connecticut already uses science standards that call for teaching climate change. If passed, Connecticut will be the first state to sign that requirement into law. And with that, Carly, over to you.
Thanks, Todd. All right, Nancy Pelosi getting serious pushback after demanding President Trump call off the State of the Union address over the shutdown.
This requires hundreds of people working on the logistics and the security of it. Most of those people are either furloughed or victims of the shutdown, the president's shutdown. But that isn't the point. The point is security.
Homeland Security, the FBI, Secret Service have all assured us that they can do their job. So I think that's her primary objective there, is to take away a microphone from the president.
So, is she just trying to silence the president? Joining me now is Republican strategist Kimberly Klacik. Kimberly, thank you for being with us this morning.
Good morning.
All right, so Speaker Pelosi says it's all about security. Are you buying it?
I think it's ironic. So Speaker Pelosi, she wants to have security at the State of the Union address, but she doesn't want security at our southern border. I think that's quite ironic, but I have to tell her she should be happy that the Capitol is actually a gun-free zone, so she doesn't actually need that good guy with the gun that she always says isn't actually necessary.
And you take a look at the Department of Homeland Security's response. Kirstjen Nielsen tweeted, the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Secret Service are fully prepared to support and secure the State of the Union. We thank the service for their mission focused and dedication to all and for all they do each day to secure our homeland. So you see a response like that, and you have to say, well, okay, so security is off the table. Is she possibly trying to make it so that the president doesn't have this big forum to talk about his border security wall and his side of the story in terms of the government shutdown?
Absolutely. And as far as I know, we elected the president. So I don't think she really speaks for we, the people, in saying whether or not our State of the Union address shouldn't be done and shouldn't be televised properly. I think, honestly, Nancy Pelosi does her best job at fear-mongering, and that's what she's doing again today.
But, you know, the Democrats get a response after the State of the Union, so wouldn't she want that?
You would think so. You would think so, but I don't know what the response would be. What would this response be? We don't need security at our southern border? We absolutely do.
Well, the response to the president's speech that he made just a few weeks ago didn't go too well for the Democrats and Speaker Pelosi. So maybe she's a little gun-shy on those responses. So do you think that the State of the Union will go on as scheduled on January 29th?
I absolutely do. I mean, I don't think our president has ever stood down from anyone, especially not from Nancy Pelosi. I think he'll go through as usual, and I think everyone will be there, and I think it's going to be secure as well.
All right, so I want to get to another topic. The Democratic National Committee, they have distanced themselves. They basically cut ties with the Women's March over the co-founder Tamika Mallory's relationship with Louis Farrakhan. I know you have some pretty serious thoughts on this one. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. So I'm on Twitter a lot, and I'm always lectured about being pro-Trump, even though he uses languages that a lot of people don't think is proper or politically correct. So to me, here is a point where Tamika Mallory, the president of the Women's March, could actually condemn Louis Farrakhan for his anti-Semitic remarks, and he even has remarks that are bad towards women. He thinks women should stay home and their place is to be cooking and cleaning, not marching for equality. And these are the people that she's supposed to be marching alongside with on Saturday, and here she can't even condemn his comments.
Now, this is someone, we're talking about Louis Farrakhan here, who was called the powerful Jews are the enemy, white folks are going down, and I'm not anti-Semite, I'm anti-termite. And she says that she supports Louis Farrakhan because of the work he's done in the black community. So do you think that she just supports people that she aligns with? Because she's really fighting for, you know, equality for all people. So something doesn't add up here.
It definitely doesn't add up. And, you know, to me, another part that didn't add up is she sat there on The View. Whoopi Goldberg sat there in silence, basically, as she could not condemn Louis Farrakhan and his comments. Whoopi Goldberg once identified as a Jewish woman, and she sat there silently. Yet this summer, we saw her attack Judge Pirro because she said that the Trump administration and the president himself uses rhetoric that incites violence against minorities. But she sat there silently. So the hypocrisy is there. She needs to condemn. She should step down as the president.
You know, this is going to put Jewish women who want to attend the march in a very difficult position. You'd have to think about that one as well. Kimberly, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
The time now is 54 minutes after the hour. A Carolina Panthers star is thanking a veteran in a very big way. The patriotic play next.
As Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan issued his condolences, but would not say how the attack would impact